Hey there, welcome to my story. My name is Anne. I had always believed in our love. Marcus and I met when we were just kids, both awkward and unsure of ourselves in high school. He was my first love, my best friend, my everything. We shared our dreams, fears, and ambitions. He was my constant in a world full of change. I thought we would always be together. 10 years of being each other's world. I thought we knew everything about one another. But I was wrong. Marcus was 28 and I 23. We had grown up together. People always admired our relationship. So in sync, so perfect. But perfection is a fragile thing, isn't it? Sometimes, we don't see the cracks forming until it's too late. I can still remember the first time he held my hand. We were just 16, and I was terrified. He was always so confident, always so sure of himself. But I never thought for a second that we would end up here, broken, confused, lost. I was young, yes, but I knew what love was. Or at least I thought I did. Marcus was my everything, the one person who I thought would never let me down. Over the years, we built a life together. We went to college, got our first jobs, moved into our first apartment. We made plans, big ones. I imagined us growing old together, with children and memories, a future we could both be proud of. But dreams, as I would soon learn, don't always come true. We weren't perfect, no couple is, but we knew each other's secrets, our flaws, and we had a way of navigating through the messiness of life. There were times when I would get frustrated with him, and he would get frustrated with me, but we always knew how to make up. Those moments of conflict were never lasting. We were a team. I had always been the more reserved one, while Marcus was outgoing and social. He had this magnetic energy about him that drew people in. I admired that about him, even though sometimes it made me feel small. I was more introverted, comfortable in the quiet corners of life, while he thrived in the spotlight, and I loved him for it. I loved that he brought excitement into my world. I thought I knew him better than anyone else. I thought we could get through anything together. But when I look back now, I realize how blind I was. It wasn't just the infidelity that shocked me, it was the fact that I had never really seen the cracks forming. I had been so caught up in the image of us, in the idea of our future, that I had overlooked the warning signs. I had loved Marcus so completely, so deeply, that I failed to notice the slow unraveling of our relationship. The truth is, I didn't want to. I didn't want to see it. And now, here I was, standing at the edge of something I couldn't take back. I had to let go, but I didn't know how. The feeling had been creeping up on me for months. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination. Marcus and I had been through so much together. But the subtle changes began to pile up. Late nights at work, distracted conversations, and moments when he'd zone out when I was speaking to him. When we were together, I could feel a coldness between us, like a wall he'd slowly built, brick by brick. I tried not to dwell on it, to tell myself it was just a phase, that we would get past it. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Vicky had always been a part of our lives. She was Marcus's best friend from college, someone I had grown close to as well. Over the years, we had spent countless hours together, going to concerts, having dinner, hanging out at each other's places. She had become like a sister to me, someone I trusted implicitly. But recently, there were moments when I caught them exchanging looks that made me uneasy. I would notice the way they would laugh at something only they understood, or how he would touch her shoulder a little too intimately when she was speaking. It wasn't anything overtly inappropriate, but it was enough to make my stomach twist in knots. I tried to ignore it. I didn't want to believe that anything was happening between them. Marcus had always been loyal to me, hadn't he? He had promised me that we would always be together. That's what he had told me, time and time again. But deep inside, there was a growing suspicion that I couldn't shake. There was one moment that stood out to me. We had gone to a party at Vicky's place one Saturday night. I remember laughing with her and some of our other friends, but something about Marcus's behavior felt off. He was standing in a corner, talking to Vicky in a way I hadn't seen before. They were leaning in toward each other, and the way their heads were so close together made me uncomfortable. My chest tightened, and I tried to shake the feeling, to brush it off. But it lingered. Later that evening, Marcus had pulled me aside and asked if I was okay. "You seem off tonight, and—" "Everything good?" he asked, his face sincere, but his eyes a little distant. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, I was unraveling. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly. "Just tired, I guess." He smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "I'll get you a drink. Relax, okay?" But I couldn't relax. I kept watching them. I felt like an outsider in my own life. They were two people I cared about, and now they were both making me question everything. The thought of them together seemed impossible, but my gut told me otherwise. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of them together flashed in my mind. I tried to push it away, but I couldn't. The following week, I had a conversation with Vicky. It wasn't anything major, but it felt like a turning point. We were sitting on my couch, talking about some old memories from our high school days, when I noticed the way she kept glancing at her phone. It wasn't a casual glance. It was almost as if she was waiting for someone. My heart sank, and the silence between us grew heavy. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant, but the words felt thick with unspoken tension. She blinked, her eyes widening slightly before she smiled and tucked her phone into her purse. "Yeah, just busy. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was, but I nodded. I didn't want to press. But the suspicion continued to eat away at me. Every day it got worse. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was happening, but I didn't want to face it. That night, I decided to confront my suspicions. I had always prided myself on being a trusting person, but the growing distance between Marcus and me, the odd behavior from Vicky, it all started to add up. So I took a deep breath and followed my instincts. I drove to the usual spot where Marcus and I used to park and chat after long days at work. It was quiet, isolated, and I thought it would be a good place to think. I wasn't expecting what I saw next. I saw Marcus's car in the parking lot. But it wasn't just the car that caught my eye, it was who was in it. Vicky was sitting in the passenger seat. At first, I thought maybe they were just talking, maybe they were catching up. I mean, they were friends, right? But then I saw them lean toward each other. I couldn't breathe as I watched them kiss. It wasn't a quick peck on the cheek. It was a kiss, a deep kiss, the kind that no one shares with just a friend. My mind refused to comprehend what I was seeing. My world tilted on its axis, and I felt my body freeze, paralyzed by the shock. I stood there, hidden behind the parked car, unable to move, unable to speak. All I could do was watch them, trapped in a nightmare I never imagined I would live. When they pulled apart, Marcus looked around, and I thought for a moment he saw me. His face fell, and his eyes went wide, as if the guilt had suddenly hit him. But I didn't wait for him to come to me to explain. I couldn't. My legs gave way beneath me, and I staggered back, turning away from the scene. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, but I ran. I didn't want to face them. I didn't want to confront the truth that was now painfully clear. I spent the rest of the night pacing around my apartment, trying to make sense of what I had seen. I couldn't understand how it had come to this. Marcus had been my rock, my everything, and now he had shattered me. The next morning he called. He sounded so calm, so collected, as if nothing had changed. His voice was soft but steady. "And are you okay? I'm really worried about you. We need to talk." I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my voice lost in a sea of emotions. How could I talk to him? How could I even look at him? I hung up before he could say another word. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My thoughts kept replaying the image of Marcus and Vicky, their kiss burning into my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about how betrayed I felt. How could Marcus, the man I had loved for so long, do this to me? And why? What had happened to us? I waited for him to come home, for him to confront me, to explain. But when he walked through the door, he acted as if everything was normal. He smiled, asking about my day, like nothing had changed. But I knew. I knew exactly what had changed. And he said, his voice casual, "I missed you today." I couldn't look at him. My heart was heavy, my chest tight. Every word he said felt like a lie, like a betrayal. How could he act like nothing was wrong when everything had shattered in that moment? I turned to him, my voice barely a whisper, and asked the question that had been tearing at me since I saw them. "Why, Marcus?" My voice cracked. "Why her? Why Vicky?" His face fell, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine regret in his eyes. But it was too late. The damage was done. The trust had been broken. I never meant for it to happen, and it was a mistake. A mistake. I interrupted, unable to contain the rising anger. "You kissed her, Marcus. This isn't a mistake. This is a choice. You made a choice. And I don't know how you expect me to just forget that." He opened his mouth to speak, but I couldn't listen. I turned away, shaking my head. I couldn't look at him anymore. "I need you to leave," I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. "I can't do this. I can't." The days that followed were a blur. I stayed in the apartment, staring at the walls, feeling numb. Marcus left, but he kept texting, calling, apologizing. I didn't answer. I couldn't. How could I? The pain was too raw, too fresh. And then came the news that would change everything again. I was pregnant. At first, I thought it was a mistake. It didn't seem possible. But the test didn't lie. I was carrying Marcus's child. The realization hit me like a freight train. I was going to be a mother. The thought should have filled me with joy, but all I felt was dread. What was I supposed to do with this information? How could I bring a child into this mess, into a world where the man I loved had betrayed me? I didn't know how to tell Marcus. He didn't even know about the baby. I couldn't bring myself to face him, not yet. The pain was too fresh, the anger too strong. And so, I kept the secret to myself, unsure of what to do next. Weeks passed, and Marcus kept trying to reach out. He sent flowers, wrote me letters, begged for my forgiveness. But every time I saw his name on my phone, my heart twisted in my chest. How could I forgive him? How could I ever look at him the same way again? And yet, in the quiet moments when I was alone, I thought about the future, about the baby I was carrying. Could I raise a child on my own? Could I protect this little life from the heartbreak and pain that had already scarred me so deeply? I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to forgive Marcus. But I couldn't ignore the life that was growing inside me. The truth was, I didn't know what I was supposed to do anymore. Everything had changed. My world, once full of love and hope, was now shattered. I couldn't bring myself to face Marcus. I couldn't bring myself to tell him about the baby. I didn't know if I ever would. All I knew was that I was broken. My heart had been torn apart, and I didn't know if it would ever heal. I didn't know if Marcus would ever truly understand the depth of the pain he had caused. And I didn't know if I could ever love him the same way again. The only thing I was sure of was that I had to move forward. I had to figure out how to heal, how to live again. But the scars would always be there, reminding me of the betrayal that changed everything. And as for Marcus, he would never know about the baby. Not unless I chose to tell him. But right now, I wasn't sure if I could. I wasn't sure if I ever would.